Before we begin to outline the various biosecurity measures, let's note that we are protecting our flocks against pathogens and physical damage. It's very important for you to have an understanding of the kind of enemy you are fighting, as that will inform you better on how well to be armed to defeat that particular enemy. So we are going to divide our biosecurity measures into two components: those tackling disease and the ones addressing physical damage. So let's quickly look at the biosecurity measures to protect our flocks against pest and disease. There is something I want you to understand about disease. For a disease to occur, 3 factors must interact: a causative agent, a vulnerable host, and a favorable environment. That is the agent that causes the disease, and in our case, an animal that is susceptible to that pathogen, and an environment that favors the causative agent. When those 3 things are in sync, then a disease will occur. For instance, if an infectious agent gets into an environment and it can thrive there, and there is a vulnerable host, then there will be disease. We already know that our flocks are vulnerable due to many reasons. Number one, the way they are raised, the purpose for which they are raised, and by extension, their function and performance. All this makes them very vulnerable to diseases. That is why they hardly withstand an exposure that a local flock raised extensively can withstand. This is talk for another day. The conditions you will expose your local flock to and they will withstand, your animals that you are raising intensively and for the kind of purpose and the work they do, they cannot withstand those exposure. So they are very susceptible to pathogens. Now we know that 3 factors interact to cause a disease, and the host, which happens to be our livestock, in this case our birds, is a constant. So we need to tackle the causative agent and the favorable environment. If we can ensure the causative agent doesn't interact with an environment that enables it, then there will be no disease. So what we need to do is to try to stop the agents from accessing our flock, and at the same time make the environment very toxic for any pathogen that we gain access to our flock's environment. The practices to prevent the exposure of our flock to diseases include sanitation. The effectiveness of sanitation in keeping away infectious agents such as bacteria, fungi, viruses, protozoa, parasites, and the rest cannot be overstated. Sanitation is a weapon. It's a weapon against pathogenic pests. We simply make the environment unfavorable for them. It is our surest protection. And it includes cleaning and disinfecting. A proper sanitation doesn't stop at cleaning. it goes through disinfecting. I hope you know these are two different things. Cleaning is the removal of dirt or impurities. Why? Disinfection is the destruction or inactivation of pathogens. You just make the environment sterile. You kill any microbe that is there. You make the environment very toxic for any microorganism. So your sanitation can never be complete until it goes through disinfection. Different chemicals are used for disinfecting. What some of you don't know is that these chemicals have active ingredients ranging from alcohols, aldehydes, chlorine, iodines, and many others. And they work for different kinds of pathogens. Some chemicals may not be effective against viruses but may be effective against bacteria. Some may be effective against bacterial spores but not be effective against vegetative bacteria. In order not to waste resources by buying and using a chemical that won't work against the pathogens you are trying to destroy, you need to learn about the different active ingredients that work for which pathogen and ensure they are present in the chemical you are buying. In fact, you need a broad knowledge on disinfectant to be able to use them safely and effectively. Aldehydes are the most effective and broad spectrum disinfectant, but for safety their use is very limited. There are certain areas it is not advisable to use them. Also, strict safety measures are required for their use to protect the life of the personnel operating on them. So even though aldehydes are very effective against all pathogenic pests, including thieves, that is human being, they are very dangerous actually, but their use is very limited. So by adhering to strict sanitation practice, you are removing the favorable environment for pathogens to thrive and operate. And these sanitation practices include cleaning and disinfection of pen and all equipment before the introduction of new stock and after clearing of old stock. These points are very clear and straightforward. I don't think I'll be explaining them as they are self-explanatory. Number 2, we have disinfection of personnel. That is the people coming into your farm, the people working on your farm, the necessary visitors, because normally you shouldn't even have visitor on your farm, except it is very important to have them. So every visitor coming to your farm and the people working on your farm, they should disinfect themselves. Maybe by foot dip. There are various ways according to the program that is adopted by that particular farm. Disinfection should be carried out on personnel and vehicles before they get into the farm premises. Number 3, your staff should shower and change into their PPEs before entering the pen. PPEs should not be taken out of the farm premises and shouldn't be used twice without washing. It is not even hard. As soon as you are done with your work for the day, simply wash. And to make it easy, I think a staff should have 2 PPEs, if not for the boots and every other thing. I think the overall or coverall should be in pairs. For one person should be 2, so that it's easy for them to change. So PPEs should not be used twice without washing. Litter should be changed frequently, and flushing should also be done frequently. I already said I was not going to go deep into explaining all of this because we still have a lot to talk about, and I want the video to be as short as possible. Keep your environment clean and tidy at all time. Feed littered on the floor should be cleaned because feed attracts ants. The reason why you may be having soldier ant in your pen could be because there are some particles of feed left on the floor. Dirty litter also attracts soldier ants, and these ants are predators. They will kill your birds in no time. They are very powerful and dangerous, especially at night. So ensure to clean up the floor after each feeding. And don't feed your birds with infected feed. Feed with mud causes aspergillosis in birds. You must keep your feed from contaminants such as rodents and fungi. It is moisture that causes the growth of fungi. So when I mean keep your feed away from fungi, you should allow anything that will cause your feed. You shouldn't allow anything that will cause your feed to be wet.